Good morning, everyone. Jim Clark here at the Synchronicity Sanctuary in Central Virginia to share another contemplation with you on this fine Monday morning, So, the contemplation I want to share with you today is the truth of who you are requires discovery, not definition. The ground of being is where our truth resides. Meditate to expand your awareness, to awaken to the divine being that you are. So, in my journey here at the sanctuary over the many years that I've been practicing daily meditation and a holistic lifestyle, that kind of a focus was always given to us through contemplations such as this. And one of the contemplations I really remember is a quote that my teacher often repeated during programs and to us personally was, "You are what you think. So who are you when you don't think?" Which was really pointing to what lies beyond your thinking. Where is the source of your thoughts? And how can you get the experience of that as you? And that's really what meditation is all about. It's practicing balance. It's practicing going into yourself instead of keeping your focus to the external world around you, going outside of yourself to explore, to experience, to do all kinds of things, to discover, right? This is what life is all about, is discovering what's going on and who you are in relation to that. But to really discover who you are, that's not relative, that's more just you. You need to go inside to yourself, which is what the practice of meditation does. And as you do this, as you practice meditation, as you practice quieting down your mind, decelerating your brainwave frequencies into a stillness, even though there may be a thinking going on here and there, stillness, which is always present, it's a polarity that's always relative to activity, and it expands, and as that expands, your awareness of it becomes greater and greater, and in that awareness you start to experience more of who you are, the essence of who you are, the essence that is animating your body right now, that's animating all of life in the world. And it's the same essence, it's the same one source consciousness that we all are. And it is the experience that you gain from meditation, from expanding your awareness, from going inside to touch upon the ground of your own being, the source of who you are. And that is source consciousness. Because there is only one blissful consciousness, and you're it. We're all it. Everything is it. But to know this, to get the experience of it, is what matters in life, because irregardless of what you think, irregardless of what you believe, without the experience, there is no real knowing. And once you get that experience, then you know what the truth is, and it becomes your truth, and it becomes activated within you, and you begin to experience life, and you experience those around you and the world at large from that perspective. And as you continue to grow the strength of the experience of oneness in yourself, you begin to see the oneness that is outside of yourself too. And in this, you become much more inclusive and much more loving towards the world that you live in. Even though those around you may not have a clue, you do, and that just becomes part of your expression. So to accept, to include, and to love is what we're really here for. We're here to learn how to love, how to be one with everything in our world and ourselves. But first we must begin here with this person, with this body. This is where you begin life with, and this is where you first become enculturated with beliefs about who you are and what life is. You get a name, you go to school, you start to define yourself in relation to the people that you live with and the people you go to school with and the people you interact with. And these definitions of who you are gets in the way of discovering who you are, because we assume we know who we are because we're being raised by people who assume they know who they are. And it's just passed on down the line, generation to generation. And so we go through life trying to make sense out of life with the definitions that we inherit from our earlier days of just being here in the world. And of course, it never really works very well because there's always some kind of a conflict between what we believe and who we believe we are on the one hand and what the way life is playing out around us on the other hand. We want love. We seek love. We want to be accepted, so we seek acceptance. We want all kinds of things from the world outside of ourselves. But when we are still, when we are aware, when we are grounded in our own being consciously, we realize that we are love, that we are acceptance, and that we are complete unto ourselves, as is everybody else. And the seeking is only happening when you are not aware of who you truly are. This is the greatness of self-exploration, and the reason why Socrates said at one point, the unexamined life is not worth living. And he said that because he realized in his own self-exploration that if you don't question the beliefs that you inherit early on in your life, you never get to the bottom of it. You never really discover what's beneath all of that, because all of that is belief. All of that is just words and beliefs that you inherited, either from your parents or your teachers or your people that you lived and played with and went to school with and so forth. But there was no way for you to validate or invalidate those beliefs. And yet they're in you and they're active. So you're trying to live according to a definition of who you are versus life itself, which is never going to play out the way it will never support that definition, to put it plainly. So you'll run into situations and people that challenge your beliefs about who you are and what you can accept and what you can love, even yourself. And yet somehow there's a part of you that knows that that's not real, that that's not true. And to dissolve and go beyond those beliefs, to deactivate the enculturation that you received when you were first growing up in the world and then went unconscious in you, and yet is still active. That is what meditation is all about. It's making the unconscious conscious so that you can do two things. You can have the experience of who you are through breakthrough moments where a sudden expansions of awareness happen, and you get into the experience through the stillness of your own being and open up to the truth of who you are, which is beautiful, it's powerful, it's much more powerful than anything other experience on the planet. And yet, without that, it's very hard, if not impossible, to go beyond your enculturation, to go beyond the definitions that you're still trying to live by. You're still trying to live as if those definitions were you, but they're not. They're just descriptions that were thrown around by people and situations in your life. And once you get to a point in your own meditation practice where that knowing happens and where that knowing continues to be an active part of your experience, then you can go through life accepting and loving whomever and whatever is happening in your life. It doesn't mean there's not challenges and so forth, because there are always going to be some. And yet, you learn to love yourself. And from that base, once you have discovered who you are, once you have lived who you are, and you've got that ongoing experience of who you are, the stillness, and the awareness of that stillness is a constant in your life, when you get to that point, then the power of all the beliefs is dissolved, because the knowing, when you know who you are, because that's your constant experience, what can ever be more convincing than that? So then that's the point of a meditation and holistic lifestyle practices and traditions, because they all meditation traditions, which we call the wisdom traditions, have all known this, and they've all practiced this and taught this with various, the way they meditate, the way they describe the truth may differ from culture and time, but the essence of what they were going for is always the same in every single human being. It's the truth of who you are. It's the blissful consciousness that you are. The blissful consciousness that's waiting to come out and express itself through you as a unique expression of the one consciousness that is all and everything. And that is the beauty of diversity. It is the unity in diversity. The truth of who we are is our unity that already exists, that was here before we were, that was here as human beings. There's never been anything else. So that's what's real, ultimately real. What's not real, but what plays out, is the pretense of being who you are not. Isolated, separated individual in a world full of individuals, and the competition with the diversity that you encounter for your well-being, for your happiness, for your whatever, right? So that seems to be what's really happening, and that's exactly what we keep being presented with through media and so forth, and various happenings around the world, because people are still caught up in this play and taking it for the real thing. They're taking it for an ultimate reality when it is not. So meditate, meditate, meditate is what my teacher always told and always repeated, because that was the only practice and the only focus that could get you out of the illusion of being a separate, isolated individual in a world populated with the same millions of isolated, separate individuals, all competing for some way to survive in a world where there's so many people. But the truth is, there's only one in this world, and we all are it. It is the knowing of it, the experience of it, and the cultivation of that truth through your meditative practice that pulls you out of that illusion and pulls you out of the delusions of yourself that occur because of your belief of who you are not. So from my many, many years of being here at the sanctuary and meditating and living a holistic lifestyle, which is simply a lifestyle that supports my meditation by trying to cultivate, maximize my health physically, and my balance emotionally, and my balance mentally, it all supports stillness. It accentuates stillness as opposed to activity. And with that base of stillness, when you cultivate that as a constant, even though there's thinking, there's also stillness, and the stillness has more power than the thinking. So it doesn't matter if there's thoughts. They don't have the power that they used to have. And gradually they just dissipate. In fact, in any moment, I find in my life now that when I'm focusing on something like looking at this camera, there is a meditative aspect in my experience right now that occurs simultaneous to the activity of giving this live stream. If I'm looking at a book, if I'm looking at a computer screen, anytime I put any focus on any one thing, my awareness instantly expands into that stillness while I'm active, while I'm thinking, while the world is happening all around me and I'm interacting with it. It doesn't mean I have to go hide and live in a cave somewhere in order to expand my awareness. That's the beauty of it, is that I can live and enjoy life at the one hand, but I can also live with the awareness that what is apparent is not the ultimate reality that is happening here now. Living in the now moment simply means that you are still within yourself, where you can access the reality that lies behind the show, the demonstration of trying to be who you are not while you know who you are. And that makes the show so much more entertaining. And yet, if you're not in that space, it's not entertaining. It's a serious game. It's a very depressing game. So I encourage everyone to meditate by any way that you can, as often as you can, with that one focus in your mind, and that is that through that practice, you will discover. Forget about definitions, forget about anything you've heard. Discover for yourself. Meditate, 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 and free yourself from all the illusions that you are still attached to. So that's the message I wanted to share with you on this Monday morning here from the Synchronicity Sanctuary in Central Virginia. And I hope it is of some help and encouragement for you to seek your own truth and discover who you are. And join us in the celebration of life, moment to moment to moment.